A Russian drone crossed into Latvia. NATO shot it down. A French Rafale, a single missile, over a field in eastern Latvia. A moment that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Then, hours later, another drone exploded in Moldova. The war in Ukraine has no borders anymore. It just has neighbours. NATO fighter jets have shot down a drone that entered Latvian airspace from Russia, triggering air threat alerts and renewed concerns about security along the alliance's eastern border. The incident took place on June 8th after an unmanned aerial vehicle crossed into Latvia's airspace, prompting authorities to issue warnings in regions near the borders with Russia and Belarus. Residents in eastern parts of the country were urged to remain indoors and seek shelter as military authorities responded to the situation. The drone was eventually destroyed over Rogovka in Latvia's Rezekne region by a French Rafale fighter jet participating in NATO's Baltic air policing mission. The aircraft had been operating from Lithuania as part of the alliance's ongoing efforts to monitor and protect airspace across the Baltic region. Latvia's armed forces said the drone entered the country as a result of Russian electronic warfare activity. In a statement on social media, the Latvian military said Allied fighter aircraft had successfully intercepted and destroyed the drone after it entered Latvian airspace.
Our sensors showed that a drone had entered Latvia as a result of Russian electromagnetic warfare. At 10:05, the Baltic air policing mission destroyed this drone after visual confirmation that it had entered Latvian territory.
Just hours after the first alert, authorities issued another warning covering the districts of Kraslava and Ludza, again advising residents to move indoors amid concerns about further drone activity. Latvia's defense minister said NATO aircraft continue to patrol the border area as officials monitor for additional incursions.
On Monday, June 8th at 9:20 in the morning, we received information about a possible drone threat, a possible entry into the territory of Latvia. As a result of a timely and successful information exchange between the Ministry of Defence, the armed forces and our NATO partners, we began the task, and at 10:05 this threat was eliminated.
The incident is the latest in a growing series of drone-related security events affecting countries on NATO's eastern flank. Meanwhile, a separate drone incident was reported in neighbouring Moldova. Moldova's defence ministry said,
An unmanned aerial vehicle crossed into the country's territory overnight before exploding near the village of Lopatna.
According to officials, surveillance systems detected the drone entering Moldovan airspace shortly after midnight. Investigators later discovered fragments of the aircraft in an agricultural field and found evidence suggesting an explosion had occurred before the wreckage was located. Moldovan authorities said specialists are now examining the debris to determine the drone's origin and establish the circumstances surrounding the incident. The ministry noted that the event occurred during a large-scale Russian missile and drone attack against Ukraine. No casualties or damage to property were reported. Last month, NATO fighter jets were also scrambled after Latvia reported the presence of at least one drone in its airspace. The incident followed a similar event in neighbouring Lithuania. The growing number of airspace violations comes as Ukraine has increased long-range drone operations against targets inside Russia, including areas near the Baltic region. Several Ukrainian drones have previously entered the airspace of NATO members Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, after reportedly being diverted from their intended routes. Ukrainian authorities have apologized for previous incursions, saying Russian electronic jamming systems interfered with navigation and pushed the drones off course. As investigations continue in both Latvia and Moldova, the incidents highlight the growing challenges posed by drone warfare near Europe's borders. A drone crashes into NATO territory. Romania scrambles fighter jets. NATO vows to defend every inch. And then Vladimir Putin shrugs it off, claiming the drone may not even have been Russian. As the war spills beyond Ukraine's borders, one terrifying question is growing louder. How long before NATO is pulled directly into this conflict? A Russian drone strike has now crossed directly into NATO territory, raising fresh fears that the war in Ukraine could spill even further across Europe. Overnight, a drone crashed into a residential building in Romania, injuring civilians and triggering an emergency response from both Bucharest and the NATO alliance. The incident took place in the Romanian city of Galați, close to the border with Ukraine, during a large-scale Russian aerial attack overnight. According to Romania's defense ministry, the drone was tracked by radar after entering Romanian airspace before crashing into the roof of an apartment building and sparking a fire. Romanian authorities immediately scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets along with a military helicopter authorized to engage airborne threats. The strike has triggered a sharp international reaction. Romania's government has now convened an emergency national security meeting, while the Romanian Foreign Ministry summoned Russia's ambassador over the incident. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte warned that the alliance stands fully prepared to defend its territory following the incident. After speaking with Romanian President Nicu Dan, Rutte posted on social media,
I just spoke with President of Romania about the Russian drone that hit a residential building in Galați. I assured him of NATO's absolute solidarity with Romania and expressed sympathy for those injured in the incident. I affirmed that NATO stands ready to defend every inch of Allied territory. We will continue to enhance our readiness to deter and defend against any threat, including from drones. Russia's reckless behaviour is a danger to us all.
Dmitry Medvedev warned European leaders that drones would continue entering their countries and disrupting civilian life as long as Europe remained involved in the war against Russia. Medvedev said it was still unclear which country the drone involved in the latest incident belonged to, but accused Europe's impotent leaders of hypocrisy for expressing outrage while supporting Ukraine militarily.
Let them get ready. This will continue to happen. There is a war going on, and citizens of EU states, as populations of countries participating in the conflict, will not be able to sleep peacefully.
He added that such incidents were especially likely in countries producing drones and military equipment for Ukraine.
European drones, spare parts and other weapons along with intelligence support are used in attacks against our country every day.
Meanwhile, Putin vehemently rejected the allegations, saying it was too early to say if the drone which crashed into the apartment block in Romania was Russian, and suggested it could have been a Ukrainian drone.
I don't even understand what you're talking about. Just before entering this hall, they told me, "Did you know that some kind of drone flew into Romania?" I said, "I don't know. What drone?" Ms. von der Leyen wasn't in Romania after all. She didn't examine the remains of this drone. No one can say where a particular aircraft originates from until it's examined. After all, we know that Ukrainian drones have flown into Finland, Poland, and elsewhere in the Baltic states. The initial reaction was exactly the same as now in Romania. Help! The Russians are coming. The Russians are shooting. Then, a short time later, it turned out that these had nothing to do with Russian aircraft, but rather that these drones were of Ukrainian origin. They had strayed off course, were affected by electronic warfare, or for some other reason, or because of imperfect technical specifications, they had flown there and crashed.
As Russia intensifies missile and drone attacks across Ukraine, the incident in Romania is now adding a dangerous new layer to an already volatile conflict, one that increasingly risks drawing NATO itself closer to direct confrontation.